Before we start with today's episode, I'd just like to congratulate the gaming media. Having learned its lesson from No Man's Sky and Titanfall and Watch Dogs and all the other overhyped games that turned out to be rather disappointing in the long run, they've decided collectively to do away with the hyperbolic rhetoric, to do away with the over-exaggerated PR mouthpiecey hype puff bits, you know? All of that over-the-top, over-excited crap that you see in preview coverage of games. No more of that, it's all done. Well done on your restraint. Oh, okay, carry on then. I guess some things never change. Speaking of which, let's bash YouTube a little bit, shall we? Oh, fucking hell. YouTube's gone and done something to upset everybody again. There are already loads of videos with all caps headlines going, "The death of YouTube?" That's how I read those video titles whenever I see them, by the way, with that stupid voice. But anyway, YouTube's dying yet again because everything is always the death of YouTube. But what's killing it this time? Well, it's another bafflingly out-of-touch idea from the minds of Google that won't actually prove fatal, but will yet again create more problems for users and do very little to fix any real issues, while opening the system up to yet more delicious abuse that won't get the oversight it requires. If you've missed the news, Google rolled out a new program called YouTube Heroes, a community scheme where users sign up to basically become moderators on YouTube's behalf. These so-called YouTube heroes will be able to add subtitles to videos and report so-called negative content, working alongside others to flag vids for anything they deem inappropriate. In exchange, YouTube will offer perks to diligent moderators, leveling them up with better tools and more authority. A leveled up hero will be able to do such things as mass flag videos. On the surface, this seems like part of YouTube's continued attempt to clean up its service, tackle harassment, and deal with genuinely troublesome content like their drama channels. However, like the company's ad-friendly content rules that caused a stir just weeks ago, the whole idea seems deeply ineffective, exploitable, and a wholly indirect means of dealing with any genuine problems that really do, at this stage, just need a direct bloody hand. First of all, let's deal with the most obvious glaring issue: YouTube getting people to do for free what ought to be a paid position. Make no mistake, moderating a website, not least a huge one like YouTube, is quite an undertaking, and if you're a business like Google, getting people to do your work for you in exchange for fuck all is generally considered sleazy. Looking through the so-called perks of YouTube herodom, most of what's on offer are just tools that allow the heroes to do their job better. You're essentially working to unlock rewards that let you work more. It's the No Man's Sky of video moderation. YouTube sat on its hands while profiting from channels that are designed to inspire and rally abusers, never daring to personally step in and shut them down. Instead, they've made piss-weak roundabout attempts at corralling them via ad-friendly monetization rules, and this scheme which aims to put the blame for any fallout directly on the community. It's a classic case of YouTube wanting to have it all, to have a service with a clean reputation that corporations won't be ashamed to be associated with without having to lift a finger of its own and actually face up to some of the shit it allows to go on and makes money off of. Which leads us to another big problem: relying on the YouTube community for moderation. As someone who has had videos mass reported in the past just because they pissed off an angry mob who wanted the content they didn't like to go away, I can't say I'm particularly confident about a system that has the potential to give angry mobs even more power. Giving users the ability to mass flag stuff is pretty reckless, especially since false mass reporting is already a well-known problem that is itself tied to the very abuse and harassment that YouTube's attempting to address. Sure, it would require leveling up and pretending to not be a scumbag for a long period of time, but some scumbags are very, very patient. And really, we've all read YouTube comment threads. Don't get me wrong, a lot of you are lovely folks, but, well, we've all seen the tiny little monsters that inhabit that blasted wasteland below the videos we watch. As my good friend Gav, aka Miracle of Sound, said earlier today, if there's one group of people whose moral judgment you can always rely on, it's the average YouTube commenter. He said it sarcastically. If you couldn't tell, it was sarcasm. Like sarcastic commentary there. Basically, you can't rely on the moral judgment of anonymous spods on YouTube comments is what's being said there, okay? Yes? YouTube's community guidelines and content rules are not generally terrible, but they're certainly rarely followed, and I'm not against some measures being put in place to deal with the worst transgressions. However, getting literal strangers on the internet to enforce the rules seems like a really, really bad idea. Getting literal strangers to do almost anything on the internet is generally a bad idea. Of course, Google has rules against abusing the YouTube Hero system, stating people people won't be allowed to submit false contributions, harass other users, and generally do all the exploitative things we're worried about them doing. The question has to come up though, who the hell is moderating that? Who's heroing the heroes? And if there are moderators moderating the moderators, why aren't the moderators moderating the content in the first place? I mean, we've seen the extent of YouTube's commitment to policing video so far. They use broken automated systems that are routinely gamed for unfair content ID matches and spurious copyright takedown strikes. With YouTube's past track record, how can we trust there'll be any human judgment on the validity of hero contributions? The best I'd expect from Google anymore is another shitty robot that can't tell the difference between a penis and a car, let alone navigate the tricky minefield of free expression versus harmful material. Some have said it's too early to judge, and pointed at sites like Wikipedia as evidence of community involvement turning out okay. To that I say, first of all, this is YouTube. We can accurately judge this scheme will either go nowhere or be open to abuse because it is YouTube. If you want evidence that something will go wrong before it's even happened, ask yourself if YouTube's involved. If the answer is yes, then you have your evidence. Second of all, Wikipedia has been exploited before, many times, to say nothing of the wars of attrition and nasty exchanges that happen between editors routinely. And that's with human oversight, with power users that can revert edits to articles and make judgment calls. And it's not really comparable to the perpetual lack of accountability YouTube attempts to maintain with its hands-free approach. It's a different site run by a different company with different users and different goals. YouTube is a shit circus, and I expect nothing but shit clowns whenever the circus rolls into town. As it stands, the video announcing YouTube Heroes has been mass disliked and YouTube's had to disable comments, presumably due to spam and negativity. There's something very fitting about that, isn't there? It's also a pretty clear indicator that using as mods the very community that it just had to mute probably isn't going to work out very well. In short, I fully predict this will be yet another annoying exercise in pointless short-sightedness that at most will create intermittent frustrations for users and barely do a dent in any real problems. So basically, it's another day in YouTube policy making. I think I'll stick with Captain Planet when I want a hero. Sure, he's done about as much for the ecosystem as a bottle of hairspray long term, but at least he looks damn fine in his little red knickers.
Sing it! Sonic Hero! Watch right here, right here.
All that remains to be said is something something, hero we need, hero we deserve, however that Dark Knight shit goes. Thank God for me. Before we go, I think it's time for some Fuck Konami news, isn't it? Oh, I should Coco. Yes, let's talk about Fuck Konami news. All the news that's fit to make you say Fuck Konami. I didn't forget in the last Fuck Konami news where I talked about PES 2017. I didn't forget the Metal Gear Survive stuff, I was just saving it for the next one, because every bit of Konami's bullshittery deserves separate cataloguing. Which brings us to Metal Gear Survive, which was shown off in a 15-minute demo at this year's TGS Tokyo Game Show, and it looked pretty much how we expected it to look. Mundane, pedestrian, mediocre, rubbish. It's basically Metal Gear Solid 5, it's the same map and everything, they've reused that and they've just put some zombies in it. Brilliant. That's your big debut, is it? That's your big debut Metal Gear game without Kojima. Speaking of which, Kojima had words for the game in which he asked, how do zombies fit in that? He wants to know how zombies work in his game series about political espionage and all that shit. And you know you've done fucked up when Hideo, she breathes through her skin Kojima, when Hideo nanomachines are literally magic Kojima, is pointing at what you've done and thinking, that doesn't work. That doesn't work in my wacky clone nuke walking tank game series. Konami, you are the worst.
Appreciate it. Nice save. Looks like one of them has an injured leg.
Really not a lot more to add to that. I think Kojima said it best. Hideo Kojima, the man himself, thinks what you've done is silly. Which is funny because also what you've done is the most cookie-cutter, boring, bog-standard idea you could come up with. Which again, kind of goes contrary to what Metal Gear Solid's about. If Kojima had put zombies in Metal Gear Solid, they would be the most ridiculous, over-the-top magic zombies in the world. Instead, we've got zombie corns with their little red glowing horns. Konami, everyone.